There's always been one key thing in my mind all those years. How was it to actually jump in the real world, working in a company? Because in my mind, things would be completely different to what I was used to back in my university's times, in the master's period, or the years back in college. I assume things were completely different organizations, interests, a team, but actually it's not like that, and it was only an illusion of what reality plays or comes to play, uh, to be honest. So, from that simple question, and from my short time of experience working in a big company, or what for me right now is a big company, is what I bring to you today. The difference, the reals between that thing that we imagine that is going on and the truth inside, the knowledge, the key pieces and wheels turning and moving around in a company. This is not a simple thing to answer. I still have not made my mind clear, but it's something I would like to discover with you as we move on to this usual conversation that we have each week. Maybe it's because I was born in a small town, in a small city, on an area where big companies wasn't a big thing, and the industries was more focused into agriculture than big tech companies, multinationals, etc. And then I moved to a university in a more renowned city, and then a bigger jump into the main big city to the masters. That I have this idea or this perspective into how things should be or how things could even be. So maybe it's my background, it's where I came that made me realize this lack of interconnection that for me was actually obvious in my mind, but it isn't like that. And by me, what I mean by this is big companies or my job is completely chaotic in the way that each one of them, even though you're a big company, that you are your own client, fights one against the other for own interests. And is this idea of the own interest what really popped up in my mind about in surprise actually, because you are at the end the same employer, but turns out like even though you're a big company, things are not like that. Um, a recent series that I started that has been running for years called Succession actually reflects this message way better than I will do ever again, ever in life. But when I was in university, you fight with other students because rivalry games, departments, and you had to make your own life and your own resources because no one would actually come to rescue you. When I get to the masters, they teach you an idea of hierarchy, of a structure, of coordination, organization that is actually just useful on the books. Real world is nothing to what they teach us. It's that rivalry with your roommate, with your classmate, fighting for who has done the exercise. I will not give it to you. It's kind of this simple example that I'm trying to get. Interest plays such an important role in day-to-day life, in even and the bigger company and the big you get in a company, the more interest that start appearing from nowhere. That it's both scary and exciting in a way. When I was doing my internship on a agency, since you're an agency working for clients, seems like all of you are in the same boat, even though there are departments. You are on the same boat because clients are what matters, and you need to focus just for them. So you make allies with your other workers in post of a better result for the client, so you can get them once again and kind of have that relation. But when I made the jump from that agency to a big company, a big national company here where I live, I suddenly saw how this was completely the opposite. Departments were super structured and fixed. It was like all of a sudden inside the company there were 10, 12, 15 more companies. It turns out that it's actually like that because big companies usually end up like that after making many, many acquisitions, restructuring departments or teams to get to the point that we are currently today. So when I saw that, I was quite afraid because people actually push or fight really hard for their zones. Their boundaries are clear. And if you put one step into anyone else, even into the area of one of your colleagues from the same department, you are in danger. Big companies are a big danger zone if you don't know how to move carefully. Boundaries super fixed, which means if the boundary is a straight line and you try to push it slightly 1% more than what it should actually be, you will break it. And if you break one relation in that a big multinational company, it's game over. So there's no way of turning and gaining back that trustworthiness that is created or settled the first day that you arrive. So you need to be really careful with that. You need to focus much on those boundaries. And all of a sudden, you go from working or studying for a job to having to work the same thing, but knowing and having to learn about politics. It's like big companies are so much more about politics, about how to handle with people, who to contact with to get things moving, more than actually you focusing on your job. It's way more of soft skills than the hard skills of your day-to-day job. And trust me, that's tough, and it's been tough for me. And the other thing with the department is, since you are so fixed in your boundaries, in your task that someone else gave to you, that people are completely unable to put their minds into other people's position. Since I'm here sitting on my chair, I will always wait for you to come to me. If you see these big companies in movies, it's literally like that. The only people working are boss or directors having to go to meetings, or the only employees going to meetings. But there is no crossing between employees from different departments. Everyone is sitting at their desk waiting for someone higher in hierarchy to come to them and tell them what to do. Because it's like we are so important, which actually we are not, that we cannot move and go elsewhere to ask. We cannot look like we are the dumb person in the office that is always going around asking for people, or we cannot denigrate ourselves going one step below, moving out of our chair in person to ask to the person. You only do that in case of emergency. And what happened with this is when you have to work on a project that needs different departments, the whole project is a chaos. It takes twice as much, it costs twice as much, and the result is as bad as anyone could have imagined. Because no one on the whole team that had to run that project made the decision to stand up, go ask 3 desks away from you to the other person, what do you need? And I saw that. If you work on the tech industry where the engineers are doing their super technical stuff, and then you have the sales team on the other side that needs to understand what they're doing to sell into the sellers or to the clients, you will see there is clearly a lack of connection and no one will talk with one of the other. This is the clear example of a sales team advertising a characteristic that didn't even exist or wasn't even planned to be developed by the engineers and the technical department. There's such a lack of connection, and I saw that. I saw that in the first project that I had to collaborate in and I took part in. No one actually talked. There was no cross-talking until the day the final project was presented. There was no opinion, no guidance. There was only one first meeting that by the time I wasn't at the company, so I wasn't there, with the directors saying this is what we're doing. From that moment, they follow a straight line, no alterations until we implemented it. And guess what happened? It did not work. It did not work because the people who had to use it had not been taken in consideration. Their routines, their actions, what they actually have to do and understand was not there. The solution wasn't for them, was for the director of the department. It wasn't a solution for the workers, it was a solution for directors, which means all the money spent was thrown into the bin. And now you need to rethink it, readapt it, and the end result is going to be way worse than if you actually went and asked in the first place, because you put characteristic and you develop things that now cannot be changed. And that actually happens a lot in the client world, in the big companies. And I've been going with this over and over and over, especially after reading several books. One of the most valuable books that opened my eyes is the Lean Startup. Don't ask me about the author, I'm horrible with names. But on that book, I always had in my mind that being an entrepreneur means having to build a company from scratch, but actually you can be an entrepreneur in a big company. And that actually opened my eyes. And one of the things he mentioned on that book is that big companies tend to make trial periods go to the infinite and beyond. And that's true. We tested it for 2 months, and then 3 more months prior to me coming to the company. So a total of 5 to 6 months of trials. And then when you make the jump into production, bugs appear, problems appear, you need to solve things. There were tried things to be done because you couldn't on pre-production, etc., etc., etc. When you come to see that, and then you read the Lean Startup Method, where you clearly see, no matter how many you try, how many trials you do, many testing you try, it's never gonna be enough. So it's better to throw out a product semi-developed with the basics established, let the user have it, touch it, feel it, and has his opinion on it, than actually do a full development. Because those things that you may think were super useful for may actually not be. So that's a couple of things. That's my reflection. I have no made a clear guide for today's. It's just that, wow, the real world and the big companies are way more difficult to handle than I even imagine. No surprise why the young generations completely beach out those kind of companies and go to agencies, super fast moving companies where they can learn the tech startups, and more young people try to go to a startup because it's more agile, it's more dynamic, it's more fun. Here, I have such a big amount of pressure from hierarchy, from politics, from rules, from things I should or shouldn't do, dress code even in 2023, that pressure adds up to the pressure of your day-to-day job, knowing that you need to do things correctly, that you need to handle conversations, that meetings need to be done in a certain way, etc., etc., etc. That amount of rules for someone young starting in their working career is tough. It's tough, and you need to have the energy, the courage, and the patience. It's patience what you need to work in those kind of companies. And what tends to happen that patience comes with years of expertise, of failure, of learning, etc., etc., etc. But it's that this is the reflection that I was trying to do and trying to bring today. The companies are a case, are super hard to deal around. But I think this would be super interesting to know beforehand, wouldn't I? Like, when I was in university, no one actually talked about companies deep inside of companies. No one actually saw me how a company worked from the inside. And when I went to the master's, which was more a practical approach, even there, no one actually talked about those little queries that you have in there, that the departments fight within each other, that you have all this drama going around, complainings here and there, long, endless meetings. You know how many meetings I do? It's crazy. Meetings that you could solve way easier by just standing up, going and talking to the person directly. But instead, they set up meetings to talk because that's why they feel it's how things should be done on the correct way instead of just asking. On my previous job, every doubt I have, I just stand up and open a chat or talk directly to the person. Now here, when people have this kind of things going around that they don't know how to solve, they make a full meeting, 1 hour meeting with 5 more people sitting there just listening, which is another thing that we like to consider on those companies. Is actually useless or not, I don't know. I don't have the experience yet to be able to analyze that. But that's it. That's the point of today. It's been short since I've been working on this kind of company. I think now I reached like 2 months and a half, and I improve a lot. I learn a lot. It's still a lot more to be learned, but I like it. I like it so far, and this is why I think I want to bring it here. I'm working in a medium-sized companies. It's not a startup. It's not an indie company. Just someone with high value in the market with a very strong foundation. And you come to learn a lot from people. You have so many profiles of workers. When you come to think about how many people could work on that kind of companies, you have from end to end of the spectrum engineers, people from the systems that are super technical, that just know about technicity, about programming languages, about data infrastructure, about software, about applications, about developers, etc., etc., etc. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the sales force, people who only know how to incentivize and cut the users to sell them what we need to. So you are working with such different profiles, and in the middle you have people from all sorts of age, all sorts of experiences, all sorts of backgrounds, all kind of roles. And then when you mix all of that into a single bag, which is the project, you need to know how to talk and handle the same topic, the same idea, to from the more technical guy to the least one, and they both need to understand the same thing. And the hardest part is that they both need to work on the same direction, because what ends up doing is one of them works toward that goal that they think is right, the other one doesn't get the goal, so they push in the other directions, and then you crash in the middle with no solution and with no progress whatsoever. And then these two people will get angry, the engineer and the sales guy, because they don't actually understand each other, which is a problem of language. When you see that on a company, you really need to act. You need to act, even though it's maybe not your task. Maybe you say that's part of human resources, the HR department, whatever you call your boss, I don't care. But you actually need to understand that. You need to be able to balance it. And this is on a scale, you need to give what they need to each other. And then you need to put them on the same path. You need to synchronize their ideas, their speeds, etc., etc., etc. That way is how your projects, the project that you are taking part in, will grow. Or at least that's what I think and what I'm trying to do on my day to day. And that's it. I'm not gonna go to the extent and beyond. I'm gonna try this new sort of format where I sit down, talk about a topic, about a sentence, about something I have in mind, post it online, and see where we go. So far, so great. My professional side of life, I'm really happy with it. It's going in a great direction. The content creation Solas podcast is going awful and not going anywhere, but who cares? The idea of this thing is to practice my English, to get better at speaking, to put my ideas in order, and to have patience and being disciplined with the journey. So let's see where this leads me to at the end of the day. Thank you very much for hearing, listening, watching, or whatever you're doing with this. And I'll see you on the next one. See you.